Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Fatima Nasir, lecturer from University of Education, Lower Mile Campus, Lahore. The subject is Evolution and Principle of Systematics. The main teacher for this subject is Dr. Muhammad Mudassir Shehzad from University of Education, Township Campus, Lahore. Practical 2. Collection, preservation and identification of common species with the help of keys. Today we are going to discuss part 2 of this practical. In part 1 we have discussed about invertebrates, and in this part we will discuss about collection, preservation and identification techniques of vertebrates. So let's start with today's lecture. First of all, vertebrates. Vertebrates animals are animals with a backbone or vertebral column. There are 5 groups. Fish. Number 1 is fish or class Pisces. Number 2 is class Amphibia. Number 3 class Reptilia. Number 4 class Aves. And number 5 class Mammalia or mammals. In this lecture we will study about different collection methods, different preservation methods of these 5 classes, and then their identification with the help of keys. So this lecture is also divided into 3 parts. First of all, we will discuss about the different collecting methods of these 5 classes. Methods of collection. There are 2 basic methods for sampling or collecting vertebrates. Number 1, active searching, and number 2 is passive searching or passive sampling. Active searching is also known as journal or visual searching for a set period of time, which consists of searching for animals in their native habitats and microhabitats. So in active searching, the person or the collector will remain in the area and search for the specimens or organisms. Passive sampling, using different types of traps. There are various techniques used in each of these sampling methods depending on the vertebrate group being collected. Simply, in passive sampling, different types of traps and devices are used for the collection of specimens. Fish collection. The fish capture should be undertaken in all the aquatic environments to be sampled, whether continental or marine. Fishing equipment is generally of 2 types, selective and non-selective. Selective instruments. These consist of traditional fishing gear as well as nets with meshes and specific shapes designed to capture fish of certain sizes and with similar lifestyles, including fishing lines, fishing poles, sieves, dip net, long line fishing, fishing nets such as cast net, trawl net, gill nets, hook net, also used in capturing other vertebrates. So in the selective instrumentation, the collection or instrument which is going to use for the collection is depend upon the size and lifestyle of the fish. For this purpose, different nets or instruments of different sizes and shapes are used, depends upon the size and shape of the fish. Non-selective equipments are those used when no importance is given to the size or lifestyle of the fishes to be collected, and include electrical fishing equipment as well as chemical substances such as rotenone. Non-selective methods have many disadvantages and are generally not recommended. The use of chemical substances, for example, is considered an environmental crime in Brazil. Electrical fishing equipment is not only difficult to transport and store, but also can occasionally cause serious accidents. So if there is no importance given to the size and lifestyle of fish, then the non-selective equipments are used, but these non-selective equipments are not recommended and they are disadvantages for the collection because it use chemical substances and electrical methods for the collection purpose. And chemical substances in some countries it considered as a crime, so it's not good to use chemical substances, because other lives which are present in the water, they can also be affected or damaged or died due to the effect of the chemicals. So non-selective equipments are not very well recommended. Selective instruments are used in which different types of networks or mesh networks or different other instruments are used for the collection. Amphibians and reptiles collection. Amphibians and reptiles are often collected together. Active collecting of amphibians and reptiles can be undertaken in two ways: journal and systemized. Journal Journal sampling. It consists of wandering randomly in a predetermined area while examining the greatest number of possible microhabitats, that is, in the vegetation, underneath the leaf litter, fallen trunks or rocks, in crevices or rocks, in burrows along the margins of streams and lakes, or within them. Systemized searches in which the researcher surveys and establishes transects to encounter the animals. The most commonly used sampling method is systemized collecting. So in journal sampling, the collector first of all select an area and then randomly collect the animals from different microhabitats. And in systemized, first of all a transect is established by the collector, and then the animals are collected. This method is most commonly used for the collection of specimens. The principal method of passive collection involves the use of straight line, drift fences and pitfall traps. Plastic jars or buckets that are buried to their rims and separated by plastic drift fences at least 5 meter long and 1 meter high. So in the passive sampling, different fences and different traps are used for the collection of specimens. Different plastic jars and buckets are buried in the ground, recall the pitfall trap, the yellow traps or pitfall traps, which we have discussed in invertebrate sampling. Just like that, a large plastic jars and buckets are buried into the ground and separated by the fences. So when the organism passed on through this area, it will be trapped in the jar or bucket. These traps must be inspected at least twice a day, in the early morning and before nightfall. This method is very useful in capturing species that are difficult to detect by active searching. Mostly through active searching, and animals of small sizes are collected. So this method is very useful for the collection of large organisms or those organisms which can't be collected through passive sampling. Through active sampling. Other devices such as glue trap and sticky trap are largely used to capture arboreal specimens. Arboreal specimens are those which spend most of their life on the trees. Funnel traps are generally set near bodies of water to capture tadpoles, snakes, turtles, and can be associated with pitfall traps to maximize collection efforts. Cage traps are principally used to capture mammals, but are equally used in collecting large lizards, turtles, crocodilians. The vat used in these traps must be renewed daily. Meat, fruit, or a mixture of sardines, flour, and peanut butter. And non-target animals attracted to these vats can often be used as bait for larger animals. The specimens collected are then transported in cloth and plastic sacks to the laboratory, where they are anesthetized and killed. So in this slide we have discussed about different types of traps. Glue traps and sticky traps are used to collect the organisms which live on trees. Funnel traps are used to collect tadpoles, snakes and turtles, and these traps are usually set near water bodies. Cage traps are principally used to capture mammals. Obviously, in cage traps, bat must be used, and we have discussed about bat in the invertebrate sampling, that bat is any material which is used to attract the specimen. So different food material can be used for the can be used as bat for the collection of specimen. And if any non-target animal is attracted to the bat, and it traps in the cage, then it can be used as a bat for larger animals. So after after collection of the organisms from the traps, they are transported in cloth and plastic sacks to the labs where the next preservation procedure will be followed. Birds collection. Collecting of bird specimens for scientific purposes are made with two principal objectives: to study their plumage and other structures of external morphology, to study their skeleton and soft tissues. It means that birds are collected scientifically for two reasons. If you want to study about their plumage or skin or their external morphology, and the second purpose is to study their skeleton and soft tissues. Additional information is usually generated concerning their nest, eggs, behavior, and songs. In general, birds can be collected by either active direct searches or passive collecting. Like others here, also we have two methods: direct searching or active searching, and passive collecting. Active searches are undertaken during the day, generally in the first hours of the morning or at nightfall, by way of random searches or along pre-established transects. Birds can be brought down with a 36 caliber shotgun using small N8 or large shot number 5. The caliber of the shotgun, the sizes of the shell, and the shot must all be adjusted to the size of the bird, its distance, and the collecting locality. The use of this equipment requires a hunting permit and a registration permit. So in active searching, a gun is used. A gun is used for the collection, and the caliber of the gun and the size of shell and the shot, it all depends on the size of bird, its distance, and collecting locality. And to use this instrument, the person should have a permit letter or registration to use that gun for the collection of specimens. The method most commonly used to collect birds employs mist net. These nets should be set up before the birds begin their activities, generally between 4 to 4:30 in the morning, depending on the geographical localization of the sampling area. This method is very simple, in which a net is established or placed at the places where birds mostly visit in the morning time. So when the bird visits that place, it will be trapped in the net and can easily be collected by the collector. The collector can often maximize the collecting success of both active searches and mist nets by recording bird calls and then playing them back to attract other birds. This technique is extremely advantageous because it will attract individuals of a particular species. As we know that birds make specific calls to attract other birds for mating or for other purposes. So so it's very useful that if the collector can record the song or the call made by the birds and then play it again. So by listening that call or bird song, the other birds will also be attracted and they can be collected by the collector. Mammals collection. Collecting mammals in scientific search has three principal objectives: to study their skins, bony parts, and soft organs. Like birds, here we also have three scientific purposes to collect mammals. The first one is if we want to study their skins, second is to study their bony parts, and the third is to study their soft organs. The information contained in the collected specimens and deposited in scientific collections can serve as the basis for study of systematics, evolution, biogeography, genetics, and ecology. Means the information which will be gathered by the collected specimens is also used to study is also used as a base to study about the systematics, evolution, biogeography, genetics, and ecology of those mammals. Mammals can usually be collected by two distinct techniques: active collecting, known as direct searching, and by using traps. Active collecting is utilized for certain groups, principally medium-sized animals such as small felines, foxes, small deer, wild pigs, and monkeys. This type of collecting hunting commonly involves the use of a 36 caliber or larger shotgun, 22 caliber rifles, and shells with small number 8 and 10 or large shot number 3 and 5. To use this equipment, the researcher must have a license. So, like birds collection, in active collection of mammals, it is also done by the usage of a 36 caliber or larger shotgun. And to use this equipment, the person should have a registered license. Other equipment is also used to collect mammals, and most items have been listed above under the topic of amphibians and reptiles. However, collectors should also take with them into the field, especially for preparing the skin. I have written some equipments which should be taken in the field if you are going to prepare the skins, and these equipments are scissor, tweezer, cotton, sieving thread, arsenic, borax, taxidermy paste, wire, pliers, brushes, sawdust, cornmeal, pins, wooden or cardboard boxes. Here a term is used, that is taxidermy. Taxidermy means to prepare the skin of animals. So the preparing of skins is known as taxidermy. Various types of traps are used to collect mammals, and there is considerable variation among the different models. The most commonly used types are tomahawk and Sherman traps, although other less common models are available, such as Havahart and Longworth traps. Here you can see the image of tomahawk and Sherman trap. Tomahawk and Havahart traps are made from galvanized wire with openings at one or both ends, and are used to capture larger animals such as foxes, bush dogs, etc. Sherman traps are made from aluminium or galvanized metal sheets. Longworth traps are also made from aluminium and have a tunnel entrance with an automatic door mechanism. To attract animals, these traps must be baited on a daily basis with a mixture of fruits and sardines or flour and peanut butter. They should be checked early in the morning. Rat and mouse traps can also be used to collect small mammals. Intercept and pitfall traps linked by straight line drift fences are also used and can maximize mammal collection. So here we have discussed about different types of traps which can be used for the collection of mammals. And obviously, if you are using a trap, a bat must be used to attract the organism. Bat can be a mixture of fruit or any kind of food material through which animal can be attracted. If we want to collect small mammals, then rats and mouse traps can also be used. And here in the image you can see a pitfall trap. A bucket is placed under the ground and an organism is trapped in it. Fine mesh mist nets made from very thin black nylon thread came in many sizes, although the most common models are 6 meter long by 3 meter tall. These nets are extended and held vertically by aluminium or bamboo poles. Uh, you can see the image of these nets in the image here. So the mammals like bats are trapped in the nets and can be collected. Now we will discuss about preservation methods of the five vertebrate groups. First of all, let's talk about fish preservation. Generally, preservation has three steps. First of all, killing. Second one is fixation, and the third one is preservation. To kill the fish, anesthetizing solution is used, and for the fixation purpose, let's treat about fixation. Specimen is placed in a wide-mouthed glass filled with the fixative solution. Fish should be inserted into jars first to make them easier to remove from the jar in the labs. It means that when you are collecting the fish specimens, put them in a wide mouth glass so that it will be easy for you. It will be easy for you to remove them from the jars and then store them in the labs. Care must be taken not to pack too many fish in one jar. Obviously, the organism will disturb, and its bending and curling can also be take place. So you should not pack too many fishes in one jar. Too many fish in one jar. Before immersing large specimen, fixative should be injected directly into the body cavity. So for the large specimen, fixative should be injected directly into their body cavity to facilitate penetration and preservation of internal organs. Washing. Following fixation, specimens are thoroughly rinsed and put into 50% isopropyl alcohol. The specimen can be rinsed by putting the jar under running water. Alternately, the jar is filled with water. After several hours, the water is decanted and fresh water is added. This is repeated for several days until no formalin odor is detected. It means that you must have used some anesthetizing solution to remove the odor of that solution. Washing is very much important. So after fixation, rinse the specimen thoroughly with isopropyl alcohol and then with water again and again after few hours, and this process is repeated for several days until no any kind of odor is detected. Preservation. 10% formalin solution can be used to preserve fish specimen. Alcohol such as ethanol and isopropanol are commonly used to fix and preserve fish specimens. Freeze in dry ice or liquid nitrogen. This is one of the best methods to preserve color and tissue of the specimen. So for the preservation of fish, 10% formalin solution is used as a preservative. Other preservatives like alcohol, ethanol, isopropanol are also used. After preserving them in alcohol or formalin or any preservative, freeze the specimen in dry ice or liquid nitrogen so that their color and tissues of the specimen will remain in their natural state. It will not be damaged. Number 2, amphibians preservation. Here we have different steps for the preservation of amphibians. The first step is euthanizing. Euthanizing means the killing of the specimen but painless killing. Kill the specimen without pain is called as euthanizing. Specimen should be euthanized in a way that will leave them undamaged and relaxed. This step should be done very carefully because organism or specimen should be undamaged and relaxed, because if any body part will be damaged, then preservation will not be successful. Number 2 step is injection and slitting. Liquid preservatives must be introduced into the body cavity, limbs and tails either by hypodermic injection or through slits. Number 3, fixing. While the specimens are still relaxed, they should be arranged in trays so that they will harden in the proper position. So fixing means that put the specimen into their relevant boxes or trays so that when their body start hardening, it will be in a proper position. Number 4 step is labeling. Each specimen should be accompanied by certain data, either attached directly or entered in a notebook with a number corresponding to a number tag tied to the specimen. So labeling is also very important. Specimen should be labeled properly. Storage. After specimens have been fixed in the proper position, they should be stored in liquid preservative for at least several days, after which they may be allowed to remain in the liquid or transferred to plastic bags for temporary storage. Number 3. Reptiles preservation. Killing. Drown them in warm water, but this is a slow process. Injecting them with 10% Nembutal solution, ether or chloroform. So killing of reptiles can be done by two ways. The first process is to put them in warm water, but this is a very slow process, so it is not commonly recommended. Second method is to inject them with 10% Nembutal solution, ether or chloroform. Fixation. Fixation required 48 hours to 1 week. In the case of small lizards, formalin injected directly into body cavity or through a cut made on the left ventral side of the body. Larger lizards should also be injected in each leg segment and just underneath the skin at the base of the tail. Snakes injected with 10% formalin every inch along the length of body cavity, or else they are cut on the left ventral side of the body. These cuts should measure 1 to 2 inches in length, should penetrate into the body cavity and should be about 1 inch apart. So here different methods are described for the fixation of reptiles. Preservation. Small and medium sized reptiles are preserved in 6% formalin and large sized reptiles are preserved in 10% formalin. Number 4. Birds preservation. Captured birds can be killed by compressing their thorax, which impedes their respiration and heartbeat. Other techniques include injecting ketamine into the thorax or alcohol or formaldehyde into the base of cranium or inhalation of ether or chloroform. Means different chemicals can be used to kill the birds or kill the organism. These specimens may be prepared in 10% formaldehyde and subsequently conserved in 75% alcohol or prepared in a dry state through taxidermy. What is taxidermy? Taxidermy means the preparation of the skins in a dry state. Obviously, skins are preserved in dry state. So the preparation of the skin of organism is called as taxidermy. Study skin. The most traditional preparation is the study skins, in which almost all of the body inside the skin is removed and replaced with cotton, so that the final result resembles a bird lying on its back with its wings folded. In this method, all of the internal body organs are replaced with cotton, and the organism is prepared in a way that it looks like it is lying on its back with its wings folded, as you can see in the picture. Rome and Schmoe. A more recent preparation method pioneered by Royal Ontario Museum remove all bones for a complete skeleton, while also producing a round skin without bill or legs called a rome. Though if one set of wing and leg bones remain with the skin, that is called Schmoe in North America. So if the birds are preserved in a state, that is by removing their bills and legs, that is called rome. And if one side of the wings and legs remain with the skin, that is called a Schmoe. Number 5. Mammals preservation. The specimens collected can be killed using anesthetics commonly employed by veterinarians or with ether or chloroform. Injections with alcohol or 10% formaldehyde at the base of cranium are commonly used for small individuals, with large doses of cyanide being used for large specimens. So different chemicals can be used to kill the specimen. The specimens can be prepared by liquid or dry techniques. For liquid preparation, 10% formaldehyde is injected into the specimen and then they are conserved in 75% alcohol. Dry preparation is done through taxidermy, We have discussed about taxidermy in the previous slides also, that it's a technique by which animal skins are prepared and preserved. Packing and transport of the specimen in liquid can be accomplished using jars or large vessels or in the boxes. Now we are going to study about identification of organisms with the help of key. As we have discussed about dichotomous key and indented key in the invertebrates, here also we are going to identify the organism by the help of keys. So first of all, imagine that you have found a sample and you want to identify it, that from which class it belongs, and what are the characteristics, and so on. So first of all, the first possible option we have: does it move from one place to another? If your specimen is movable, it can move from one place to another, then it must be a animal. And if it can't move, then it will be a plant. In the case of plant, we have divided that the possible option for that is: does it have flowers? If the specimen is plant and if it has flowers, then it will be a flowering plant, and if it do not have flowers, then it will be a non-flowering plant. Then come on the animals. Now again, again we have a one possible option for the animals, that does it have a backbone? If yes, then it will be a vertebrate, and if no, then it will be an invertebrate. So now in the case of vertebrates, we know that we have 5 groups of vertebrates, and now just think that you have studied about 5 classes of vertebrates, and keep in mind about the common or general characteristics of all those 5 categories. And by keeping in mind their characteristics, you can easily identify the organism. For example, you have 5 organisms and you don't know that from which class it belongs, what is the name of this organism, and other things. So by remembering the characteristics, the general characteristics of the classes and organisms, you can identify them. So first of all, we have the possible option is: does it give birth to live babies? If any organism of the samples which you have, if any one give birth to live babies, then you will categorize the specimen as mammal. And if no, then the other possible option is: does it have feathers? If yes, then it will be a bird. And if no, then the other possible option is: does it have gills? So if any of the sample have gills, then it will be a fish. And now 2 organisms are left. So the last possible option is: does it lay eggs in water? If one of the 2 organism lays eggs in water, then you will classify that organism as amphibian, and the last one will be categorized as reptiles. If it does not lay eggs in water, then it will be categorized as reptiles. So by the help of keys, you can easily identify organisms by making possible choices, and accept one choice and reject the other choice. You can identify the organism. Right, now invertebrates. For invertebrates, we have the first possible option is: has it got a shell? If yes, then it will be from mollusk. And if no, then the second possible option is: has it got 6 legs? If yes, then it will be a insect, and if no, then it will be a arachnid. In this example, again it's a very simple example in which you can identify the vertebrate classes. First of all, we have one option, that if it has fur. If yes, then it will be a mammal, and if no, then it will be, then again divide it in a possible option that has feathers. If yes, then it will be a bird, and if no, then again possible option is external fertilization, and it is yes for reptiles. And then again, if they have gills or no. If they have gills, then it will be a fish, and if they do not have gills, then it will be from class amphibian. Here we have an example of dichotomous key from mammals. We have divided mammals into possible categories: lay eggs and give birth to live young. If they lay eggs, then it will be from Prototheria, and if they give birth to live young, then again divide it into categories: if it has pouch, or if it do not have a pouch. If pouch is present, then it will from class Metatheria, and if no pouch is there, then it will be from class Eutheria. Then class Eutheria is again divided into two categories. Number one is wing, and number two is no wings. If wings are present, then it will be from Chiroptera, and if wings are absent or no wings, then it will be from primates. Then Metatheria is again divided into two categories: ground dwelling or tree living. If the organism is ground dwelling, then it will be from Macropodida, and if it is a tree living organism, then it will be from class Phascolarctida. And then on the right hand we have Prototheria. Divide the Prototheria into two categories: smooth fur or spines. If the organism have smooth fur, then it will be from class Platypoda, and if spines are present, then it will be from class Tachyglossus. Okay, we have discussed about different collection, preservation and identification methods of invertebrates and vertebrates in this practical. It was all about today's lecture. Thank you.